Sir, put your hands where I can see 'em. That's the first thing I heard. Sharp, cold, and cutting through the humid Georgia night like a blade. Red and blue lights danced across my face, and for a split second, I actually laughed. I laughed because it was absurd. I wasn't driving. I wasn't jaywalking. Hell, I wasn't even holding a damn soda can. I was just walking. Walking while black. And somehow that was enough to turn me into a suspect. My name's Marcus Lee, and I'm a 34-year-old high school history teacher from Macon, Georgia. Yeah, one of those teachers who actually loves his job. I spend my days explaining to teenagers how history has this messed up way of repeating itself, especially when folks refuse to see the patterns. And that night, standing on the curb, surrounded by flashing lights and armed nerves, I realized I'd just become another repeating headline. It was around 9:30 p.m., mid-October, one of those nights where the air smells like rain and fried food from the diner down the block. I had just finished tutoring one of my students, Malik, helping him prep for his SATs. His mom insisted on paying me in peach cobbler, which honestly was the best damn deal I'd made all week. I had my laptop bag slung over my shoulder, cobbler container in hand, and earbuds in, vibing to some old Outcast. That's when I noticed the patrol car. You know how your gut starts whispering before your brain catches up? That low hum that says something's coming? Yeah, that feeling crept in when I saw that black and white SUV slow down as it passed me. I didn't look up at first. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction. But my reflection in a shop window caught the moment their brake lights flared red. Here we go, I thought. The cruiser made a U-turn so slow it was almost theatrical. Tires crunched on the wet pavement. Two officers stepped out, white, mid-30s maybe, with that "I've already decided you're guilty" energy. The taller one, the one barking orders, had his hand resting on his holster. The other one was scanning me like I'd just been teleported out of a crime scene. "Where you heading tonight?" he asked, his voice casual, like he was asking about the weather. "Home," I said. Simple, calm, my voice steady enough that I even surprised myself. He nodded, glanced at my laptop bag. "That's yours?" I looked down. "Yeah." "What's inside?" "Books, papers, laptop, teacher stuff." He smirked. "You a teacher?" "Yup, Macon High." And that's when his expression changed. Subtle, but sharp enough to slice through my patience. You could see it in his eyes, that moment of disbelief, like I'd said I was a NASA astronaut instead of a public school teacher. "Mind if I take a look?" he asked. That's when my stomach tightened. Not because I had anything to hide. I didn't. But because I knew damn well where this road led. See, legally, an officer can ask to search your belongings, but unless they have probable cause or a warrant, you can say no. But saying no as a black man in the South at night, that's like juggling gasoline near an open flame. So I took a breath and said, "Actually, yeah, I do mind." He smiled, tight, rehearsed. "If you got nothing to hide, what's the problem?" And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about nothing to hide. It was about control, about reminding me of the hierarchy, about the fact that in his eyes, I didn't belong there. They made me put the cobbler down on the curb, like it was evidence. The second officer asked for ID, ran it through the system, and kept glancing between me and his partner. The radio crackled. Someone laughed faintly on the other end. The tall one said something like, "Copy that, we're checking a suspicious mail, possibly casing stores." Suspicious mail, casing stores. Because apparently, walking home with peach cobbler in one hand and a backpack in the other makes you a potential criminal in Georgia. They made me stand there for 25 minutes. 25 long, humiliating minutes. Cars passed, people stared. My neighbors saw. One guy even slowed down and shouted, "What'd he do?" before driving off. You want to know what the worst part was? Not the embarrassment, not even the fear. It was how normal it all felt, like my body had already accepted that this was part of life, like taxes and potholes. But I didn't know then that this night would become my breaking point. I didn't know that this same night, this same absurd stop, would lead me into a fight that almost cost me everything. My job, my freedom, my peace. and I sure as hell didn't know I'd end up outsmarting the same system that tried to bury me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That night ended with me back home, cobbler cold, heart racing, wondering how in 2025 a black man with a master's degree and a clean record could still be treated like a walking crime scene. You ever feel so angry you start smiling? That was me, smiling at the ceiling, plotting something I'd never done before, something poetic, clever, and dangerously satisfying. Because if the system was going to play games, I was about to beat it at its own damn rules. The next morning, I walked into school like nothing happened. That's what we do, right? We carry our bruises under our shirts and pretend the world didn't just remind us where we stand. Macon High was buzzing. Football posters on the walls, kids sprinting through the halls, teachers gossiping about the superintendent's new zero-tolerance policy like it was the end of days. I set my laptop bag down on my desk, still feeling that phantom heat from the police car's headlights last night. But before I could even open my grade book, my principal, Mr. Dillard, appeared at my door. "Marcus, can I see you for a minute?" His voice was that syrupy, polite tone white folks use when they're about to say something messed up but want to sound professional about it. In his office sat a police officer. Not one of the two from last night, but another face from the same force. His badge gleamed under the fluorescent light like a smug little mirror. "Mr. Lee, we received a report of suspicious activity near Cherry Street last night around 9:30. You fit the description given by 2 responding officers." I leaned back in the chair, arms crossed. "Let me guess. Black man, dark hoodie, carrying something dangerous like a laptop?" Neither of them laughed. Figures. The officer continued. "We said you resisted questioning and became verbally aggressive." Now that almost made me choke. Aggressive? Man, I said no to an illegal search. That's not aggression. That's my right under the Fourth Amendment. He stared at me like I'd spoken in Klingon. See, this is what I mean when I say they don't teach civics like they used to. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. Without probable cause, an officer can't just go rummaging through your stuff. And the Fifth Amendment? That's your right to remain silent. But in Georgia, exercising your rights as a black man sometimes counts as attitude. The principal cleared his throat. "Marcus, the district is concerned. We can't have staff involved in any legal issues. You understand." "Legal issues? I wasn't charged with anything. I wasn't even given a ticket." But see, that's how it starts. One concerned call, one whisper in the right ear, and suddenly your reputation's on life support. By the end of the week, parents were emailing the school board. Someone on Facebook wrote that I'd been detained for loitering. I didn't even know you could loiter on your own route home. But what really broke me was when Malik, my student, asked, "Mr. Lee, did you get arrested?" Now that's when I knew this was bigger than me. The officers didn't just stop me on the street, they were trying to stop me in life. So I started documenting everything, every conversation, every email. I filed an open records request under Georgia's Sunshine Law, demanding the body cam footage and dispatch report from that night. They stalled, of course, told me it would take several weeks to process. Weeks turned into months. Meanwhile, they'd filed an internal note claiming I was uncooperative and combative. Basically, their word against mine. And in this country, their word wins unless you got proof. That's when I decided to play their game, but smarter. I met with a friend from college, Janelle, who is now a civil rights attorney in Atlanta. She laughed when I told her how they described me. "Marcus, you're probably the only man I know who apologizes when someone steps on your shoe. Combative, my ass." She helped me file a formal complaint with the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division. But she also told me something that stuck. "They'll try to bury this, so you need to make it public, make noise." So I did. I started small, an anonymous Reddit post in r/justice served, titled "Walking While Black in Georgia." I laid it all out, every detail, the stop, the humiliation, the aftermath. Within hours, it blew up. Thousands of upvotes.
People were pissed, and rightfully so. Local journalists started digging. I didn't even have to say my name before the pieces started connecting. One blogger traced the stop to a pattern of complaints against those same two officers. Racial profiling, unlawful detainment, you name it. Funny how sunlight always finds the roaches. Then came the public records leak, the one that changed everything. Somebody inside the department sent a copy of the dash cam footage to a local activist group. And you know what it showed? Me. Calm, hands visible, voice steady. Meanwhile, the officer called in a potential suspect fitting a burglary description. Problem is, the burglary they referenced happened 2 towns over at 7:45 p.m. while I was still at Malik's house grading his essays. Yeah, they lied, flat out. And here's the twist. They didn't know I'd recorded the entire encounter on my phone. I tucked it into my shirt pocket and hit record the second they stepped out of the cruiser. Georgia's a one-party consent state, which means as long as one person in the conversation, me, consents to the recording, it's legal. So when their official report didn't match the audio, well, let's just say things got interesting. But instead of going straight to court, I decided to do something poetic, something that would hit harder than a lawsuit, something that would expose them and the system they served in the very way they tried to expose me. Because if they wanted a lesson, I was about to give them a master class.
Ever heard that saying, don't get mad, get methodical? Yeah, that became my new religion. I wasn't about to scream on corners or post hashtags that'd fade in a week. Nah, I wanted something slow, quiet, and surgical. Something that would make every one of those men wish they'd kept driving that night. The universe, or maybe karma wearing a business suit, gave me my first opening. See, once that Reddit post went viral, local media started calling the Macon Police Department for comment. The department, naturally, denied everything, claimed their officers acted according to protocol. You know the script. Same lines they've been using since the 60s. Routine check, fit the description, concern for public safety. But here's where it got delicious. They mentioned that my case was under internal review, which meant one thing, paperwork. And if you know anything about bureaucracies, paperwork is where the truth goes to rot, or where it can be resurrected. So I filed a Freedom of Information Act request, not just for my incident, but for every stop conducted by those 2 officers over the past year. I wanted patterns, I wanted receipts. Now, technically they could delay the request, but they couldn't deny it. And when that file finally hit my inbox a few weeks later, I nearly spit out my coffee. 124 stops. 96 involved black drivers or pedestrians. 96. You ever get that chill, that confirmation of what you always known but hoped wasn't true? Yeah, that one. So, I got strategic. I didn't release it all at once. Nah, I fed it piece by piece, like a slow drip IV into the veins of public outrage. Every Friday, I leaked one new name, one new case, one new inconsistency. Anonymous email, local journalists, civil rights groups. Each time I'd watch the headlines grow bolder. Pattern of profiling emerges in Macon PD. Teachers' forward data raises alarming questions. Walking while black, systemic bias in Central Georgia policing. It got to the point where the mayor had to issue a statement. A mayor! That's when you know you've hit a nerve. But my favorite part was watching the department scramble to control the narrative. They held a press conference, some stiff spokesperson with a smile tight enough to choke on, claiming they were reviewing procedures to ensure fair policing practices. Meanwhile, I was sitting in my apartment, eating cold cobbler, live streaming the whole thing, and whispering, "Say it louder for the folks in the back." Now, I know what you're thinking. This was revenge enough, right? The truth was out, the city was sweating. Nah, I wasn't done. Because, see, poetic justice doesn't just expose, it educates. It flips the system back on itself.
And I wanted every person watching to understand how easy it is for routine encounters to destroy lives. So I created something called Project 1032, named after the time the officers stopped me. It was a simple idea: teach people their rights. Online workshops, free templates for filing records requests, guides on how to record police encounters legally. I even got a few lawyers to volunteer. And it blew up. Overnight, I became a kind of accidental activist. People started reaching out from all over: Atlanta, Savannah, even Chicago. Stories poured in. Similar stops, similar lies, same pattern, different badge. The irony? The same police who'd stopped me now had to watch me on local news being interviewed as a community educator. They turned me into exactly what they feared: a black man who not only knew his rights, but taught others how to wield them like weapons. Now here's the twist they didn't see coming. Remember that audio recording I made during the stop? I never released it publicly. Not at first. I held it, sat on it like a loaded gun, waiting for the perfect moment. And that moment came 6 months later, when the city announced they'd found no evidence of racial bias in their internal review. Oh, really? No bias, huh? That night, I uploaded the audio to YouTube. Title: When the Police Stopped Me for Walking While Black, the audio they tried to hide. Within hours, it exploded. You could hear every word: me, calm, respectful; them, escalating, lying, radioing in fake reports. It wasn't just evidence, it was theater. Comments flooded in: outrage, support, anger. Some called for the officer's resignation. Others demanded new oversight laws. Local news picked it up again. Then CNN called. CNN! You could almost hear the department crumbling under its own PR script. By the following week, one of the officers had retired early. The other was placed on administrative leave pending investigation, which is cop speak for "we're hoping this blows over quietly." But here's where I decided to twist the knife just a little. Using Georgia's Open Records Act, I requested the retirement payout figures for the officer who'd resigned. Then I posted the number online with receipts. He'd cashed out nearly $60,000, taxpayer money, reward for profiling. And then I wrote, "Imagine if justice paid this well." That post went viral. Again, the comment section was on fire. And for the first time, the city wasn't just embarrassed, they were cornered. The mayor announced a review of payout procedures for officers under investigation. Translation: my little act of revenge just changed city policy. But you know the best part? The very next semester, Macon High asked me to design a new elective: Civil Rights and Social Justice in America. The same principal who'd called me a concern now shook my hand in front of the school board, praising my resilience and community leadership. I smiled, said thank you, and walked out knowing that the man who tried to humiliate me had just given me a microphone. Revenge doesn't always come in fire and fury. Sometimes it comes in the quiet humiliation of watching your oppressors clap for you without realizing dare the punchline. I used to think the worst thing a man could face was injustice. Turns out, it's revenge that works too well. See, when my story went national, it stopped being my story. It became everyone's soapbox. Activists, pundits, trolls, each of them twisted it into their own narrative. Half the internet called me a hero. The other half said I was anti-police. And you know what happens when the internet takes sides. The hate mail started. Anonymous emails, DMs with Confederate flag emojis. One guy even sent a picture of my house at night with the caption, "Still walking, Mr. Lee?" Yeah, cute. But the real blow came in a crisp, white envelope marked Macon Police Department Legal Affairs. Inside, a notice of defamation intent from Officer Carter, the tall one from that night. He was claiming my false statements and public defamation caused him emotional distress and professional damage. I laughed out loud when I read it. Emotional distress. Brother, welcome to Tuesday. But then Janelle, my lawyer friend, said something that wiped the smile off my face. They trying to drag you into court to drain you, Marcus. It's not about winning. It's about wearing you down. And she was right. That's how the system fights back. They don't need to win legally. They just need you to quit. So I didn't. We filed a counterclaim, libel defense based on factual reporting and public interest. Every quote, every post, every leak, I documented everything. We attached the audio file transcript, the FOIA data, and the city's own internal communications that had leaked online. If they wanted a war of paperwork, I came dressed for battle. But here's where it got dark. One night, I came home and found my car's windshield smashed. No note, no theft, just shattered glass. I didn't need Sherlock Holmes to guess the message. A few days later, someone spray-painted "rat" on the sidewalk in front of my building. The irony wasn't lost on me, the teacher who taught history, now living like I was in some twisted civil rights reenactment. So yeah, the fear crept in. Every shadow looked like a badge. Every knock on the door made my pulse jump. But there's a strange kind of power that comes when you already been humiliated. You stop being scared of it. And I decided if they wanted to play dirty, I'd show them what educational vengeance looked like. During the hearings, Officer Carter sat across from me in his blue suit, red tie, and that same smug look he'd worn the night he stopped me. His lawyer did the usual, painted me as combative, said I'd exaggerated events for internet fame. Then Janelle stood, calm, measured, lethal. She queued up the dash cam footage and my audio recording synced side by side. It was art. You could see Carter's face when his own voice played. Possible burglary suspect, male, dark skin, carrying unknown object. My voice. It's a laptop, officer. I'm a teacher. Then the part where he chuckled and said, "You fit the description," like it was a joke. The courtroom went quiet. Even the judge leaned back with that, "Oh, this is bad" expression. Janelle turned to the jury. The only thing Marcus Lee was guilty of that night was existing while black in Georgia. Boom. You could have heard a pin drop. Carter's lawyer didn't even object. The sound of that recording had already done the job. By the end of it, not only was the defamation claim dismissed, the judge ordered Carter to cover my legal fees. And the cherry on top, the court transcript became public record. Now, I could have let that be the end of it, walked away, satisfied, case closed. But that's not how this story ends. See, while all this was happening, my students had been watching. They'd seen the news. They'd heard the whispers. And one day after class, Malik came up to me again. "Mr. Lee, you think things will ever change?" That hit me harder than any lawsuit. Because what do you tell a 17-year-old black kid who just watched his teacher go through all that for walking? So I did what I do best. I turned it into a lesson. We started a project in class, Justice Through Data. The kids analyzed public arrest records, stop data, sentencing disparities, all using open data sets. What they found? Shocking, but it gave them power, gave them facts. When local news heard about it, they came to film. The segment aired with the headline, "From Victim to Vanguard, Teacher Turns Racial Profiling into Education." That was the day I realized my revenge wasn't just personal anymore. It was generational. Still, Carter wasn't done. He started showing up at city meetings, ranting about being targeted by cancel culture. But every time he spoke, someone from the audience would shout back, "1032, the code name of my project." Poetic, right? He wanted me silenced. Instead, his name became a cautionary tale, printed in textbooks, discussed in classrooms. I never laid a hand on him, never broke a law, but I took his legacy, flipped it, and turned it into a lesson plan. That's what I call Black Vengeance 101. Nonviolent, fully legal, and devastatingly effective. You know,
Sometimes I walk past that same corner on Cherry Street, same cracked pavement, same flickering streetlight. Only difference now? People nod at me, not because they pity me, but because they know my story. It's funny how one night meant to break you can end up building something bigger. The cops wanted me to feel small, invisible, disposable. Instead, they gave me a platform, a purpose, and a plan. These days, Project 1032 isn't just a workshop, it's a movement. We got volunteers in 5 cities teaching folks how to record safely, how to request public records, how to know the damn law. Because the law doesn't protect everyone equally, but it's a weapon if you know how to wield it. People still ask me if I forgive those officers. I usually say, forgive? No. Understand? Absolutely. Because you can't fix a system by pretending it's not broken. You fix it by exposing every cracked gear until someone's forced to replace it. That night on the curb, I was humiliated. But standing here now, I realize sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's quiet, clever, and patient. Sometimes it smiles while the system chokes on its own excuses. And if you've ever been stopped, searched, or shamed for simply existing, hear this. You are not crazy, and you are not powerless. Next time you're in a situation where you feel unjustly treated, remember, you have the right to stand up. Record the interaction if you can. Know your rights. Report it. Don't let anyone tell you your story doesn't matter, because it does. It always does. Together we can make change. We can build a world where people are treated with respect, no matter the color of their skin, no matter the street they walk on. You deserve to be seen, heard, and respected. Let's make our voices louder. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Let's keep fighting for a world free of discrimination. Because justice, sometimes it starts with just one walk.